YouTube, welcome back to WTF Rc Cars. So we got a bit of an upgrade for the Slash Ultimate today. We have some very cheap but look pretty well made aluminium servo saver and the matching arms for the other side of it. So before we get started we need to get the suspension off the bottom, so I believe it's them two, and I don't think we need those out. And on the bottom we want that off, and then with them two out, that should let us get down to it. So we'll get that took out and I'll be back in a minute. Right, so we have those two top screws out, those two from there, and then if we flip it over, we've got two from that side, two there, three here, and that should just remove off. Now I'm going to have to release the hinge pins, see if they come out. See if we can get this one out. So that's them two out. That'll let the A-arms fall away, and we should, I think there's one more screw actually in front here. And that should let us get the bottom of the suspension holder off, and we should be able to get it. So once that's out of the way, that should come off, and then I believe we need to remove that Allen key and the one on that side, and that should let us get to suspension and get to the servo saver. So I'll pop them off and get back to you. Right, once we've removed those from the tie rods and they come out, then the last one should be the one on the servo. So let's see if we can get to that one easily enough. I believe that one will do. Try not to get too covered in diff grease. Let's see if we can get that one out. And then there we have it. So what we're looking at doing, before you try and fit it, make sure that you've got all the parts that you should have and that they all lined up correctly. So basically we want that in there, and then not only will we be able to adjust the tension on here, because the stock one doesn't have any way to adjust. And although there does seem to be a bit of movement in this, you really do have to wrench on it to get it to move against the spring. Whereas this one, a lot easier, a lot smoother action. If you can see that opening up. And you can also just reach in and adjust the tension on the spring. So if you're getting too much bump steer, you can tighten that up, try and take it out. Right, so we'll get the old one off, get the new one on, and I'll get back to you. Right, so you will be using the original screws out of the original servo saver, but one thing worth making a note of, on the old one they screwed into plastic, on the new one it's aluminium. So you want a tiny amount of blue thread lock on it, because when you're going metal into metal it will eventually vibrate loose if you don't thread lock it. But that's all we've replaced so far, that little part. and just taking the screws out of that now and get the bearings transferred over to the new parts. Now, while you've got the assembly apart, you do get quite a lot of crap get down inside there, muck and debris, so it's well worth taking the time to just clean these bearings off, get any bits of grit and anything out of them, and also clean up around where the diff is, because you don't want bits of gravel and everything getting into that grease, because it'll all run around in there and make a right mess. I've already cleaned the top two bearings off and got them in. So now it's just a case of position those on, and you shouldn't really have to force them into place. You've got to make sure they line up on those bottom bearings. So what you're looking for is you've got to move it around until the bottom bearing sits nice and flush. Just make sure your top bearing doesn't escape like that one did. So this should, if it's all fitted correctly, this should sit pretty much slightly proud when they sat down on the bearings. There shouldn't be a lot of play in them. Then you are going to be reusing the screws. You don't need to thread lock these because they are into plastic, unless you're replacing this part with aluminium as well. Just make sure you don't lose the little washer, because that sits on top. Right, get that in place. Right, that's the servo saver assembly all set up. And you want to check for free movement. You shouldn't feel anything gritty or grinding, and there shouldn't be any resistance on it. It should be really nice and free. You don't have to go crazy tightening these down either, because they are only into plastic, and the tops of them are held in place with these two little cutouts. So there won't be any forces pulling side to side on it that can actually snap them off, because they're captivated. So now we need to get it back in. The three threads will need a tiny bit of blue Loctite in them, because again, you go in metal screw to metal threads. But don't go crazy with it, else you'll never get them back out. So we'll get this back into position and see how it looks. Right, the easiest way I found of getting this one in is to do it before you put this back in place, so you can actually move it around and there's enough room to get your finger under there to hold the screw and everything. You can do it from this point, but I just find it easier before this is slid back in place, just to position it, get the thread started, then put it in place, then tighten it down. So now we're going to move on to the tie arms for the steering. Right, so we've got the hinge pins back in, we've got the reinforcement back in, the screw back in that, and we should just be able to slide that on. And then all that's left to do is put the screws back in, and we should be good to go. Right, and there we have the car all back together. The servo saver adjuster is just up there, so you can tension it up if you want. Looks really nice, fits really nice. Nice colour match for the original Traxxas parts as well. It's not too bad a match at all, but should offer a bit more protection for the servo, as it will actually allow the servo saver to work. Unlike this one that just seems to be pretty much solid, and it doesn't particularly work well, to be honest, the stock one. Should be less play in the actual steering as well. Does seem to have toughened it up. But yeah, quite pleased with it. The link will be in the description below. And thanks again for watching WTF Rc Cars. If you like and subscribe. If you've got any questions, leave them below. Don't forget to ring the notification bell. And see you again next time.